We're on the right side of history, aren't we? Segregation is gone, women can vote, gay people are free to be themselves. Clearly, we are significantly more moral than we were 100 years ago, right? This is progress, isn't it? I mean, sure, you have a lot more street violence, millions of young women are on OnlyFans, nobody can afford a house, our food is poison, and everybody's on antidepressants, but like that's just the price of progress. You wouldn't want to take us backward, would you? Hi folks, I'm Paul, and this is my take. Something I frequently think about regarding the West is as we've become more irreligious as a people, as we've shifted away from the Christian values that this country was founded upon, we haven't necessarily become without a religion. Rather, we have elected a new one. It is the religion of progress, progressivism, moving forward into the future. And admittedly, this neo-religion is undeniably attractive to many. As we make advances in scientific discoveries and technological breakthroughs, it's easy for a lot of people to look at things like tradition and religion as antiquated relics of a bygone era. We have shed the aesthetics and practices of tradition and religion because we no longer see them as necessary and, in many cases, might even see them as repressive. And so, this neo-religion of progressivism is an eternal advance, a continuous push to topple the restrictions of religion and tradition, one after the next, without much thought or consideration for why those restrictions were there in the first place, or what kind of downstream effects might be felt as a result of their removal. Rhetorically, the word progress is almost always understood positively. I'm 80% of the way through mowing my lawn. I've made a lot of progress. Wow, look at my bank account. It's twice as much as what it was last year. That's some real progress. We often associate it with moving forward, moving on to a better place. But sometimes forward isn't always the right direction to move. Progressing forward can be extremely dangerous if a few steps in front of you is a cliff. And progress itself isn't even always contextually good, as things like cancer can progress. And societally, in many aspects, under the guise of progress being exclusively good, we have metaphorically voted for walking off a cliff and cancer at the exact same time. We believe that because we can do things in 2025 that people in 1925 wouldn't even think about doing, that it makes us morally superior and better off. Here's a tame example. Due to the feminist movement, we have progressed beyond the old ways. And now women receive the same opportunities as men. Women now work the same jobs as men. In 1925, it was very normal for women to stay home and the men to go off to work. And that's kind of an old-fashioned, antiquated, sexist way of living, isn't it? Well, I'm not so sure about that. Now, women have to work. It's their only option, many of whom would love not to. The doubling of the labor force gutted wages and handed the government twice as much in income tax than they were previously receiving. Now, a single income home is exceedingly rare, and it's out of reach for most Americans. Even when the majority of American families would prefer to live on one income, it's just not feasible. It used to be the norm in the past, but now we have progressed beyond that. Is that good? I would argue largely no. And that's one of the more minor impacts of the feminist movement. Yes, women are more free today than they were 100 years ago, but when that freedom is murdering your children in the womb, ruining your reputation by posting butthole pictures on the internet, and being forced to work when you would prefer to not, is that the good kind of progress, or is that the cancerous kind? Of course, a lot of the advancements we've made as people in the last 100 years have been good. Technological developments, modern scientific discoveries, hygiene practices, the vast majority of these progressions have been to the betterment of humanity. But those are categorically material progression. When it comes to the idea of moral progression, how many of those choices have been to the benefit of humanity? The most obvious example of a progressive good choice is the abolition of slavery 157 years ago. But in the modern age, due to things like the globalization of trade, we now benefit from outsourced labor to sweatshops in Asia. It's a different kind of benefit, and it's a different type of slavery. But when you get down to it, we have progressed out of one form of oppression right into another. I think the key question that we're missing is, by what standard are we progressing? And I would argue that moral progress is not actually possible without some kind of objective standard, be that the law of nature or the law of God. But today, those things are seen as impediments, and if we remove those impediments and have standardless progression, we end up in a very disordered state. What is then left to define right and wrong? Is that left up to the whim of what feels good? Is that the driving force behind the idea of this neo-religion? And if that is the standard, well, then progress just becomes about which ideology is able to assert itself over all the others. If our standards for morality are based on a subjective, malleable feeling, and abstract like that, then morally we disintegrate very quickly, because what feels good to me might be terrible for you. And then we are left debating whether or not my pleasure is more important than your pain. And that's basically where progressivism has led us on nearly every societal and cultural front. It feels good to me to give second chances. So I will vote for a politician that will implement cashless bail for minority criminals who are arrested. It might feel bad for the people that these criminals stab, but the good feeling I get by the idea that any and all minorities are free from oppression by the police, well, I think that that feeling is bigger and more important than the bad feeling that the victims might have. It feels good for me to vote for welfare because that gives me more money every month. It feels bad for the net taxpayers because they have to pay more taxes and I get that money. But the good feeling I get from that is more important than the bad feeling that they get from having that money taken from them. Has any of this led us to a better place? Has it made us into better people? Are we kinder? Are we more courageous? Are we more honest? Are we more moral? And if you believe that we are, and that the reality that we've created for ourselves is just another step closer to the utopian humanist state of nirvana that progressivism marches onto into perpetuity, then why does it seem like everybody is trying to escape from it? Why is nostalgia so powerful? Why do we pine for simpler and safer times? Why do so many of us so frequently sink into these fantasy realms of movies and video games? Why are addiction rates so high? Why are there more people on antidepressants and SSRIs than ever before in human history? As our culture has stagnated, as our morality has decayed, more and more people are becoming aware of the existence of evil. And through this confrontation of evil and moral decay, a lot of people are starting to seek out the divine good. I saw a stat that read something about, for the first time in my lifetime, more young men are starting to attend church than women. After a steep downward trend for decades, Gen Z men have started returning to church. They have started to seek out the transcendent. They've started to seek out a standard by which they can live well. And I think that's good news. I only hope that the modern church is prepared and equipped to direct this influx of young male energy to the higher moral authority in order to make an active change in the world around us, rather than the passive attitudes of the modern church that led to men leaving in the first place. And that's another interesting point. The greatest number of men who are returning to the faith are not going to the modern evangelical megachurches where people like this are the pastor. They are attending traditional churches, Reformed, Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox. Now, I'm not demanding a Christian theocracy, although I personally wouldn't be opposed to it. But I do think it would do the West some good to simply reconsider the pitfalls of godless Enlightenment thinking and how it has yielded the rotten fruits of this subjective morality that we see so frequently today. Maybe progress isn't about advancing on to the next thing that people weren't allowed to do in the past. Instead, maybe progress is about moving towards that which is good, true, and beautiful. And historically, for the West, I do believe that is in our past. It's behind us. So maybe to morally progress, yes, we might need to take a few steps back. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. But what do you think? Is it possible to morally progress without an objective moral standard? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments below. I really appreciate it when you share your thoughts and ideas. As always, if you enjoy my content and want to see more, I would really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. Hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I will see y'all next time.